Hello, everyone. My name is Tara Kaczorowski. I'm an associate professor and the executive director of education programs at Daemen University, which is just outside the Buffalo, New York area. I'm excited to be here today to share some insights about an article I co-authored in the Journal of Special Education Teacher Preparation. This article, which I wrote with my colleagues Angela Stockman, Andrew Hashi, and John Kaczorowski, describes how we as early adopters have tried to navigate AI integration into our teacher preparation programs. We represent administrators, full-time faculty, and adjunct faculty at two different institutions in Western New York. Undoubtedly, the rapid and growing availability of open access artificial intelligence tools is just having a tremendous impact on education as we know it. As regular users of instructional technology in our teaching and administrative work, we all became very early adopters of AI, really trying to strive to learn alongside our students. Our work is grounded in that growing role of AI in education and its potential to transform how we train future educators. We are motivated by the need to bridge the gap between emerging AI technologies and their practical and ethical use in teacher prep programs. AI can help streamline processes like curriculum development and supporting diverse learning needs, but it also raises questions about bias and the role of human oversight, which are key concerns in education, particularly special education. One of the key applications of AI we used was to support curriculum design. Like most educators, we like to use a backward design approach to curriculum development, where we start with standards to create course outcomes and then work backwards. Then we create summative assessments for those outcomes, followed by module objectives and activities to help scaffold learning towards those outcomes. A lot of our instructors have learned that generative AI can be really useful at the course level to help with that alignment work. Although after working with generative AI for coming up on 2 years now since ChatGPT was released, I've also learned how useful it can be for large scale curriculum work. Personally, back in the 21-22 academic year, I started leading my department through building new graduate programs and doing significant revision to our undergraduate programs. When we started this work, we began with low tech affinity mapping. We used those posters and sticky notes, and we were mapping state and national standards onto our curriculum. That manual work was fruitful, but it was really time consuming. Partway through this work, ChatGPT launched, and I immediately wanted to see what it could do to help streamline this process. One of the things I first did when playing with ChatGPT was ask it to generate a plan for a graduate program for me. This way I could compare it with what we just created as faculty. I wasn't aiming to replace the hard work of our faculty, but I wanted to see what the AI could do to enhance our work, like identifying any gaps in our curriculum. It took a lot of experimentation to learn how to write a prompt that would get me what I was looking for. In our article, we highlight lessons learned about writing quality prompts. Largely through the work of my co-author, Angela Stockman, we learned a lot about what should be included in prompts, simply through observing students and faculty through trial and error. Two of the figures in our article include some guidance about quality prompting. Just like teaching, prompting is a bit of an art and a science. It's really important to be clear and specific. Large language models like ChatGPT process a lot of information in a short period of time. So, unlike communicating with a human, you don't really need to worry about cognitive overload when giving instructions to AI. The CRAFT acronym we described was really useful for our students and for our faculty to give a structure to their prompts. Some people begin with what experts call basic zero shot prompts. And what that does is just ask the AI to do something. But if you notice in our acronym, that's only the first letter. We call that the call to action. It's important to also give AI some other directions. For example, you might want to ask AI to assume a specific role when doing that task and to consider a specific audience for the output. You want to give very specific format for the output as well. Do you want it to create a table, a four-level rubric, a paragraph, a letter? Within that format, you also have to tell the AI what technicalities to consider. So, for example, in my department, if I was using it to create rubrics, we use the same names for four-level rubrics for anything that's for program assessment. We say exceeding, meeting, developing, and emerging. So I always specify that AI should use those terms. The last letter of the CRAFT acronym stands for sociocultural lens. It's critical to remember that AI sources information from imperfect human sources. So you will see human biases in the output. I have to say that it's gotten better since we first started, but we still need to take steps to mitigate those biases. I remember when we first started playing with AI in the department to generate some case studies to use for class activities, one of our faculty prompted ChatGPT to give students in the case study two moms. ChatGPT responded by saying, it's not biologically possible to have two moms. We ended up using that example with our students to highlight to them this obvious case of bias that AI can have. Fortunately, I've tried using that example more recently, and that type of response is no longer coming up for me. But what we're still seeing are some more subtle biases, like enforcing cultural or gender stereotypes. It's really important that we ourselves and we teach our students to look out for these underlying biases. If I follow that CRAFT acronym, it's going to result in a pretty lengthy initial prompt. You can see here that I have color coded an example of this, how I can make sure that my initial prompt has all of those parts. Um, Putting that into generative AI also, even with this complexity, doesn't mean I get the perfect case study. In this example, I'm generating a case study. It doesn't mean I get the perfect one on the first try. It just will give me a better place to start. So what I did was I took and copy pasted what you saw on that slide directly into ChatGPT to see what it would come up with. So in this case, I'm asking it to create a case study for a learner with a disability that we're going to use it for in-class activities with teacher candidates. They are going to, I want it to have some data that the teacher candidates need to interpret, and I want them to be able to use that information to practice writing a report or writing goals or any piece of that IEP like the PLAF. As it was processing, at one point it actually froze up on me. So it was a lot of information to process at once. I did have to refresh my screen a couple of times. And then I also realized that I wrote in my prompt that I was going to attach some examples of CBMs, and I forgot to do that. So what I did was I wrote a second prompt saying, oh, I forgot to attach the PDFs. Here are the probes from the CBMs. It's really important that we actually give the AI the specifics like that, because right now AI does not have the ability to, like, for you to give it a website and say scan the website for specific probes of CBMs. I have to actually attach it for them. But once I did that, actually I was really pleased with the results that came up. You can see here that it gave examples, it gave tables with student responses on the specific assessments that I attached. Now, as a user, I need to make sure I do go back and confirm that those are a good match. And I also need to decide, looking at the case study it comes up with, which elements do I want to use in the final copy. So for example, I have to really think about the activity I'm doing with my students. ChatGPT actually summarized some of the data it generated. And in the case of how I wanted to use it in my class, I wanted the students, the teacher candidates, to do that kind of interpretation. So I didn't copy the parts where ChatGPT actually interpreted the data. Our prompting guidance that I showed is very useful across a variety of contexts in our classes, whether you're faculty using AI or the students themselves are using the AI to do things like lesson planning, drafting scripts for their videos, or unpacking learning standards. Like most skills, prompting is something that needs to be practiced. So we encourage you and your students to experiment and really reflect on lessons learned while you're doing this. As AI gets more advanced, I'm sure these prompting strategies will need to be refined as well. In our article, we also talk about other forms of AI beyond generative AI, like you just saw here. A common concern of educators about AI is that it's doing the work for our students. Now, as shown here, if facilitated well, this doesn't have to be the case. There are some tools with AI built in that don't have the primary purpose of generating content for the user, but instead they're designed to be instructional AI that supports the learning process. Two tools that we have used in some of our courses are Packback and Vosaic. It's beyond the scope of the webinar for me to describe everything that these tools can do. They're pretty robust, but I'll give a quick overview of how the AI component for each supports learning. Packback uses AI as a coach for the habits and hallmarks of quality academic discourse and long-form writing. The AI provides real-time, immediate feedback to the student about writing elements like grammar and syntax, flow, transitions. It also pushes them to back up their claims with sources and helps them evaluate the quality of the sources they select. The AI is self-leveling and it meets the students where they're at. It essentially brings the writing support center at the university to the students as they work. This allows the instructor to now use writing as a tool for learning and assessing content knowledge. We've only used Packback in a few courses at this time, but I really think it has a lot of potential to help level the playing field for our students for whom writing is a barrier to their learning. We always strive to assess in multiple ways in our courses, but written communication is still a vital skill for educators. I do want to point out that this is not a free tool like OpenAI. It does need to be purchased, and they have a few different models. You can use a student pay model, or if you are buying it on a larger scale, you can do enterprise licensing for like a department or even the whole institution. For us, in order to expand our use of a tool like Packback, we're always looking for ways to reduce costs on students and use more open source materials instead of textbooks. So this way, if we do have an added cost of a writing tool, we can choose that intentionally for the courses that really need that extra writing support. The other tool that I mentioned is Vosaic, and we use this pretty widely at both institutions that our authors work at. Mosaic is a video analysis platform that allows the user to tag and annotate specific video clips and reflect on whatever's happening in the video. At my institution, we really scaffold the use of this tool to reflect on teaching practices. So early in their program, teacher candidates begin by reflecting on videos of other people teaching. And then eventually they start to upload their own videos from in their field experiences, and then they reflect on their own teaching. We actually now use Vosaic for remote supervision during their field placement. Vosaic has an AI component called AI Mate. It's fairly new at this time, but it has a lot of really interesting uses. The built-in AI uses a video transcript to search for specific moments in the video based on a prompt you give. So, for example, if you're a supervisor watching a video of one of your teacher candidates and you know that this particular teacher candidate needs to improve their questioning strategies, as we know a lot of them do, you could ask the AI to find moments in the video where the teacher asks different types of questions, like open-ended versus closed-ended questions. The AI can hyperlink timestamps for the supervisor to review, or even for the teacher candidate to review themselves. The goal of AI Mate isn't to do the reflection for you, but it can really help draw their attention to specific moments to focus on when they're doing their reflection. So, in summary, we have found integrating AI into teacher preparation can streamline curriculum development, support reflective practice, and really enhance student learning experiences. It's important to note there's still limited research that measures impact of AI on actual learning outcomes. In our opinion, this impact is likely to be highly nuanced and evident more by documenting the learning processes more than the learning product. So that's something we've started to explore in our own research. To wrap up, I just want to emphasize the importance of human oversight when using AI for teaching and learning. Like any other technology, AI is a tool. It's not something that ever could or should replace the teacher. Whether you, as the instructor, are the one using AI or whether you're facilitating activities where your students are using AI, it's essential to critically evaluate any kind of AI outputs. Using AI involves deliberate interaction among human and machine. We've only just begun to tap the transformative potential of AI. With ethical and intentional use, I'm really excited to see how education may evolve. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you'll check out our article in Journal of Special Education Teacher Preparation.